you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time. All righty, good morning and welcome to the March the 21st edition of the Counter Racist Coach Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are elated that you took the time to call in to today's show. We would like for you to be a participant in today's show, and you can do that by doing this. You call this number, 516-453-9921. And if you have a short comment, you can do so, which we call, Mr. Fuller calls a VGQ. And you can and ask a question. You can do that. So make sure you push the number 1 button and you can be heard. Make sure you also give the call screener your name so that I can see it and properly introduce you. You can also you can send me a Gmail at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. When you do that, I'm asking you, ma'am, and I'm asking you, sir, do not write me a novel or a book because it will not be read. And I'm emphasizing that because some of you have taken advantage of that. And I'm giving you a last memo or verbal memo. Do not write me a 4 or 5 page letter or 4 or 5 page paragraph so that you think that it could be read over the air. It cannot. We only have a certain amount of time that we can do this. And when you do that, and some of you put 3, 4, 5 questions in there, it just can't be done. And you've taken advantage of that. So that ends today. If you write me a letter, a novel, it won't be read. It's as simple as that. So make it short and sweet so Mr. Fuller can hear it and understand it and answer the question. Then we can move on. That way we get more people in. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. blogtalkradio.com. And when you do that, you want to click on where it says shows, and then you get to produce programs. You get to produce just the show. You click on that, and I believe to the right side, there's a area that you can get into the chat room. Just press that, and you're there. Now, I have received some communication that people have tried to get in there, and they have not. I'm looking at some names now who have no problem in getting into the chat room. Be Good One, B Sam's, Constructive Action Items is in there. Texas Green or TX Green 777 has joined the conversation. They've gotten in. So I don't know why some of you have experienced that problem. ProduceJustice.com is not in control of that. You would have, if you're having problems with that, then you need to contact the blogtalk.com people for that. That's all I can say on that. All right? Okay. I think that's all the house cleaning that I have to do today. So let's get on this. Thank you, Brother Muko, back. All right. Let's get on this. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay. Now, this is the part of the show where we have Mr. Fuller express himself. It's called Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, on the 21st of March, which is this day, what is on your mind that you would like to share with the world and the listening audience?
Well, I was thinking about laws. So just a notation to the people who are listening. Some years ago, they told me, they, meaning whomever makes laws, I was in a situation where they were teaching about law. So the teacher, the instructor, said there are three types of laws. Statute law, case law, and common law. Those are the three types of laws. Now, what's the difference? Statute law, I was told, in the Northwestern Hemisphere, statute law means written law, a law that is written down. I mean, passed by a legislator. When you hear the word legislature, that means people who make laws. That's what the legislature is really called, a number of people who are appointed or who appoint themselves, depending on what the situation is, to be the maker of laws, written law. So the people will keep referring to that written law in what you call law books. They go to the law book, and this is something that's written down. That's number one, statute law. That takes precedence. That's supposed to be the most powerful of laws of the three. Because the second one is case law, meaning after you've already had a case, say, of giving out parking tickets. Now you have parking ticket laws. And then you'll have a case of, say, for example, a case law would be the first time that statute law is executed. Now you have a case that you can refer to. You can say, Mr. Brown was given a ticket yesterday, given a ticket for parking or over parking. What was that based on? That was based on statute law, because that law was written for that parking lot. There's no parking there, and he parked there. So he got a ticket. So now you have a case law. He's the first case law for that statute law. He's the first case that came up. He was the first person to park there. So that was a test of the law. At first, Mr. Brown, when he parked there illegally, now we got something to refer to, because before that, nobody had parked there, so there was no case law. Then the third law is common law. Now, some people have probably heard of common law, like common law marriage. We used to have a nickname for it, jumping the broom. It's nothing written down. It's just more or less a kiss or a handshake or whatever, or jumping the broom. Somebody, Miss Brown, married Mr. Everett yesterday out in the country. Well, did they go before a judge, anything, or priest, or somebody, that wrote something down and made it into case law, statute law, rather, based on a case? No, they didn't do none of that. They didn't even know anything about it. They live in the country. But that's the way it used to be in the Northwestern Hemisphere among many people who were way away, didn't know anything about a courthouse or anything like that. They were just people who had a small farm, and they didn't even have papers on that, any kind of law showing that they are supposed to be there. And that was way, way back. But I'm talking about three types of laws: statute, case, and common. Now, why am I discussing this morning? Because here in the year 2023, a black person can say, now, I am under a government called racism. say, I don't have any statute law that says that. A statute law, something written down, says I'm an American and I am a citizen of the United States of America. Now that's on statute law, written down. That's law that's written down. And you'll find that. You'll find my name in that somewhere. And who am I? Name, address. What's your citizenship status? A citizen of the United States of America. That's what statute law would say. And when you've gone into court and all like that, you've announced that that's who you are. Are you a citizen of the United States of America? And most people who are of that statute law will answer, I've done it on many occasions. Say, yes, I am. I am a citizen of the United States of America. Now that's under statute law and case law. Because I've had cases where I've told people that. That's what case law means. You've had cases that you can use as an example. In high school, in college, are you a citizen of the United States of America? And you'll say yes. So that's case law right there. That's a case where you use that law. And then there's the common law. And the code says what I talk about every week. Under common law, no person who is subject to the system of white supremacy is a citizen of anything except he or she is or the other is a subject to a feudal system or a tyranny called the system of white supremacy. That's the law you come under. Under what? Common law. You won't find that written down anywhere. But I'm a citizen of a system called white supremacy, a citizen of racism, Neely Jr. I have announced myself to be something that I have not been. I haven't ever been a citizen of the United States of America. That's impossible, because you can't be subject to the laws of white supremacy and the laws of the United States of America, whatever that's supposed to be, at the same time. That's impossible. So when I say that I am subject based on common law, which is the most powerful law that has ever governed Neely Jr., I'm telling the truth. All those other times that I've said I'm a citizen of the United States of America and under the United States of American law, that's never been true. Not for 1 second. And so when the occasion calls for it, according to the code, I'll use that as such. But for just going to court and being a witness or something like that, since I don't want to be disruptive, because if I announce myself as being that, even before I get to the case, the judge will probably say, oh, you say you're a citizen of the system of white supremacy. Well, that doesn't apply here, all right? So I'll probably get rejected for going to court that day. So you can use it that way if you see fit, because everything in the code is supposed to be something you can use. And if you can't use it, you don't, because it's selective. Now, I've never used that, because I didn't want to cause a lot of confusion in court. I just wanted to get out of there, because I had other reasons, for getting out, or reasons to be there, because I have participated in the court system on a jury. So I just wanted to run past people out there that the most powerful law, if you're a person of color, that applies to you is common law. And that means that you are subject to the system of white supremacy. And actually, you're not subject to any of the laws except the laws that the white supremacists make. That's what being a victim of white supremacy means. You're subject to their laws. And if you can show evidence that you are, and the code book is supposed to help you do that, you can go in any court and say, under common law, I am a citizen of the system of white supremacy. That's the so-called country that I have allegiance to. I have never had allegiance to the government of the United States of America. That's impossible when you have allegiance to the system of white supremacy. Even though you want to have allegiance to the United States of America. But if you are already under an ally of, a subject to the system of white supremacy, you can't be both. It's either or, citizen of the United States of America, or a subject to, or a citizen of, quote unquote, the system of white supremacy. And that's the only government I've ever really known. I'd love to be a subject to, or pledge allegiance to, the United States of America, but it doesn't exist in the system of white supremacy. I'd love for it to exist. I do everything right now, including on this program, trying to establish that government. Because that's a government of justice, but it's never existed, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. There you have it. There you have it. 516-453-9921 is the number that you can call to get in contact with the show. I just received a email concerning the Blog Talk Radio from one of our people who happens to be on Blog Talk and listening to the show, and that's Be Good One. Says that he says that when you get the email, notice for the live show, you may not be directed to the show. It says something like the show can't be found, or it will take to various previous shows, but not the live one. You have to search it. You have to search for it. Confusing. I was fortunate to get it quicker than the last two shows, last 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. Thank you, Be Good One. I don't know what's going on with that. I know that I have been experiencing a lot of circumstances, usually or suspectedly caused by the usual suspects that generally are in play to try to disrupt this wonderful message that's going out. I do know by statistics that the CRCS with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and his content is going all over the world, and people are responding to it. Hopefully it can be also reflective in book sales with people not stealing the material for their own profit. We don't want that to happen. But anyway, so Daryl, you asked about the Blog Talk Radio. This is the latest information that I have, and I don't know what you have to do to get it, but hopefully you can. But thank you for listening to the show. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Get ready, Baltimore. My brother is on. My brother, Muko, are you ready? Because I'm getting ready. Hopefully we can get you in. Muko, you are now on. Good morning, Brother Muko.
How you doing, Mr. Bobby? Long time no hear. Well, I hear you
sir.
almost every week, but I haven't called in for a minute. I want to say good day to Mr. Fuller. And I have a two-part question. But first, before my question, I do want to make a statement. Mr. Fuller, I don't know if you guys can hear me clear. I am driving. But Mr. Fuller, I have tried a lot of your suggestions that you have in your book, and they have worked for me. I just wanted to let you know that because I haven't heard too many people come and tell you any results. And I just wanted to express to you that a lot of your suggestions in your code book that I personally have added to my code has worked for me in a positive way. Now, I want to ask you, for my care unit in Baltimore and surrounding cities, can you please explain to us again about the statement that is in the beginning of your book about racism, white supremacy, and not being, and knowing what it is and how it works. And if you don't know that, how everything else you know will only confuse you. Can you explain that in detail and explain how that pertains to the area of education?
Okay.
And
Mr.
Mr.
Fuller?
Bobby, can you keep me on the line afterwards?
I sure can. Mr. Fuller?
Yes, for education itself. What is education? Learning what is. Learning anything, and the purpose of it, in a capsule, in a nutshell, the purpose of education is to learn basically how to solve problems. That's the first order of business. And everything that's associated with problem solving. If you go to school and you come out of what they call school, whatever kind of school it is, college, university, elementary school, and you're not able to solve problems, then that's a problem because you haven't been schooled. Education is acquiring knowledge. Knowledge about what? About what you need to know. In order to do what? Know about what? Did you need to know everything? Well, ultimately, yes, in answer to that question. Like right now, in answer to this question, what do black people need to know? You need to know everything that will solve your problem, whatever that problem is, and the better the education is, the faster you can solve the problem in the most efficient manner. That's the test. So black people always say, I got this kind of problem, I got that kind of problem. In all of the areas of activity maybe, or in most of them, because they're all interactive. I got a problem in economics. I don't have enough money. How about that problem? I don't have enough money. Can you tell me, is there a school somewhere that can tell me how to make money? Because that's what I need. That will solve a whole lot of my problems right now. A lot of black people will say that instantly. A lot of white people will say that. Okay? So if you walk out of school and you don't know how to make money, that school needs to be checked out. I'm going to say that right now, worldwide. Why? Because they say that people have to have money. So that should be one of the first things you learn about. I mean, you have to learn it even to get to school, something about money. And certainly when you walk out of there, do I have enough bus fare? You should learn about that. And everything else connected with it and how to get it. And how to get it fast without going to jail. And a whole lot of it without going to jail or without being accused of a crime. Now, how about that for teaching? And how about that in answer to the question? That's what a code is about. I want this to be understood by the audience. But in the system of white supremacy, black people are not taught how to do anything that is of constructive value. That's in the second area of activity, education. The first area is economics in alphabetical order. And economics has to do with education. And education has to do with politics. What is politics? It's interactive with economics and education. Interactive how? Well, it has to do with people, correct? Like a person would say, well, I'm not into politics. Yes, you are if you said good morning to somebody, or if you spoke to your parents, or you did anything, talk to the filling station owner. The minute that you talk to a person, like I'm talking to people right now, I'm being political. That's all politics is. You interact with people. But that's a compensatory definition. But the moment you interact with anybody, bus driver, anybody, the moment you speak to somebody, you are political right there. You are into politics big time. So a person will say, well, I'm not a political person. I don't believe in politics. Yes, you do. If you interact with people any kind of way. I mean, when you go to buy groceries and there's somebody behind the counter, that's political, even though you don't talk to each other. You just talk through your credit card or something like that. That's talking. I mean, they pick up your credit card, you're being political right there. Right there. I don't want to get too far away from the question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Did I answer this question? Just tell him that the textbook is all about whatever your problem is. That's all you got to think about. And then turn to the textbook and see if it's in there, the textbook for victims of white supremacy, see if there's anything in there that will tell you how to solve your problem, or how to think about solving your problem, or give you an idea of whom to contact to solve your problem, or even an analysis of what causes the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of that. So basically, that's how I would answer that question, because it's sort of a broad question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, I tell people, let's go to the textbook. It's got 9 areas of activity. Just pick one of the areas of activity and say, now, is there anything in this book that would tell me something about how to go about this mess that I done got in, or this mess I'm trying to straighten out for me or somebody else? Is there anything in this book? Like in the sex area, I got a whole bunch of questions that people should ask each other before they get in that bed. A whole lot of them. That's a guide right there. And that's being political, too, because you're interacting with people. But before you get in that bedroom, you ask somebody and get the answers to as many questions as you agree on. So you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. The textbook is just a guide. It's not a dictatorship. I think it's someone that called in last week and used profanity because they didn't like what was being said. Well, if you don't like what's being said, then the book and the program, this program, is not for you. You can only, if you're just looking for something that you like. But this is about problem solving. And it's to help solve a problem, whatever you think the problem is. You know? And questions and answers. That's how you solve all problems. But if you're not getting the answers that you're looking for on this program, there are other programs. The code says that. You seek information where you can get information that will help you. That's all. It's nothing complicated. It's real simple in answer to the caller's question. The people who say, you know, well, what do I do, and what you do is just look for answers to questions. That's all. I'm always looking for answers to questions, because I'm always ignorant about a whole bunch of things that I need to know. And that's all the code book is about. That's all this program is about. I can't emphasize that enough to everybody. We don't want to make simple things complicated. You don't have to curse anybody out or anything like that. You just say, well, I don't agree with what you're saying, so I'm going to go find somebody that I can agree with. I don't agree with none of that garbage Fuller's talking about. Well, you can say that and then tip your hat and walk out. Go to the next station. It's like going to Vegas and playing the slot machines. You don't like this one? Go to the next one. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. You're a gambler. It's simple. Not complicated. Doesn't call for shouting and cursing. Or for a lot of head scratching.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. And Brother Muko, thank you for that question, because that's been on the mind of a lot of people. And as Mr. Fuller states at the beginning of every program that I've been on him with ever, and at the beginning of the book, and you stated it when you called in this morning, when you quoted it, said, if you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, and that's in parentheses, says everything else that you understand will only confuse you. That right there is enough. But people don't get that. But if you hang with it by asking questions, eventually it'll come to you. Let's take a
and if
break.
It's not enough, I'd like to interject this.
Yeah,
if
go
it's
ahead.
not enough, just think about, do I have a problem or understanding something, or I'm trying to accomplish something, and can I look in Neely Fuller's book and find something that will lead me to a solution? And that's all you do. You don't have to, think about that statement so much. After you think about it and you can't figure it out, well, just forget about it and go to the book and try to solve your problem. How about that?
Okay.
Try to find something in the book, just whatever you can find. Because that's what I do with my own book. I just flip pages. I say, oh, here's something that I think I can use. That's what I do. That's how the book is supposed to be used. You can forget about everything else. Just, how can this help you solve your problem? This thing that's being said on page 32. And if you can't find it there, just turn the page, whatever.
All righty. Let's break it off here. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here. And we are so happy that you are listening to the program. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, please do. Just call this number, which is 516-453-9921. Make sure you press the number 1 button. And when you do, the call screener will come on. Give the call screener your name. And you can give a VGQ, which is a small statement, or you can ask a question and wait for the answer that Mr. Fuller can give to you. Please make it brief, because as you can see, he uses many, many illustrations to bring the point across so that you can understand it, or we all can understand it, because the one thing that we do not want is confusion. So make sure you do that. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. I cannot say for certainty that your Gmail will be read, because the callers come first, but at a certain time and point it will be read. And I'm asking ma'am, I'm asking sir, don't take advantage of me by writing me a book. I'm just going to tell you right off, it will not be read. You can forget that. It will not be. Make your questions short and sweet so that Mr. Fuller can clearly understand the question and answer your question. Make sure you do that. You can also go to the chat room. I understand that there's some potential problems in there. I don't know about them. I've just been informed that some people are having some problems. Be Good One sent me some information, and said that there's some kind of, in his opinion, some trickeration in getting through. That's the first, or rather the second week that I've heard of something going on. But anyway, go to blogtalkradio.com. You make sure you want to click on programs. You do that, and then on the menu is the Produce Justice Show. You want to do that. You click on that, and hopefully there's a little box there where you can join the chat room and get in there and see what's going on and see if you can listen to the show or have a chat. Because some people, like Swat in California, listens to the show, but he's also a part of the chat, so we appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Moving on, we're going to go to Milwaukee, and it's going to be Corey. Corey, let me see if I can get you in here. Okay, Corey, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning,
Morning,
Mr.
sir.
Fuller. Mr. Fuller, expounding on what your thoughts and expressions were this morning and the last caller's call concerning the system of white supremacy, can you express for us non-white people, us black people, how us looking at the system that we are prisoners can help us to recognize that we're prisoners, how this can help us in the system of white supremacy? Thank you.
Just by saying it, if you wanted to look at it that way, everything in the code book is optional. If that will work for you in a setting where you say that that's what you are, a prisoner of war, and being treated like a prisoner of war, and show evidence that you're being treated like a prisoner of war, then you use it. So you can, if you don't know what prisoners of war or what a prisoner of war is or what it's like, you can just look it up. Or look at movies about prison or prisons of any kind, because being a prisoner of war is just like any other prisoner except it's added of war. And it's actually the prison conditions in which you go through, it's just about the same, basically. But they are sharply different from one prison to the next, sometimes from one cell block to the next within a prison, about how a person is treated. Depends on the personnel and the system, whatnot. But basically, prison is prison. And the whole world can be a prison to you if you're being mistreated. Being mistreated means you're in prison. You're in prison if you're mistreated and no one stops the mistreatment. That's the prison. Look at it that way. That's the codified way of looking at it. If you're mistreated for 5 minutes, you are a prisoner of war. If someone is mistreating you, that's war. So you can always prove that. They said, well, that's not a prisoner of war. That's what somebody else will say. But you said, anytime you're mistreating me, that's war. I don't know about you. I can't speak for you, sir or ma'am. But I was made war on this morning for about 15 minutes by my supervisor. War was declared because everything that supervisor did was against the laws of this institution as far as what I have been told. So that person declared illegitimate war on me this morning when I came in at 8 o'clock. That's what this person did. That was war. Well, you're always going around saying somebody's making war on you and whatnot. Well, either they are or they aren't, sir. So let's, now, if we're going to start there, and apparently we have, let's go to court right here, right now. Court is now in session. And the first thing you want to do when you have in court is what? Get the truth. I made a charge. War was declared on me. Now, either that's true or false. So we can now go through the details to find out whether that actually happened. Because anytime I am being mistreated, that's war. Are there any takers? And then that's when you look around the room. Anybody got a disagreement with that? I don't disagree with it because I just said it. Now, is there anybody who has a disagreement or agreement with that? Make your case that war was not declared on me this morning at 8:15 because I was watching the clock while all that was going on. And all that was going on was illegal because it was mistreatment. Mistreatment of any kind against anyone on this planet at any time is, according to the code, war, W-A-R. So where's the problem? Anybody disagree with it? Okay, make your case. Mistreatment is war. That's all war is. Counter-war is stopping the mistreatment, according to the code. That's already written in the code book. That's what counter-war is. War, counter-war. The ninth area of activity. That's a war against the person who is starting the war. That's counter-war. That's not non-war. That's counter-war. See, words are very important. So that's all you got to do. Just say that. Learn how to talk using codified language. That's a whole nother way of speaking. But it works. But you practice it. Practice it before you do it. It's like anything else. You go into court, you better practice doing something. Particularly if they're fixing your job is on the line or something like that.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Okay, from the Gmails, David 2 says this, Mr. Fuller, what can you do if you cannot avoid conflict with another black person? For example, if I go to work and have to interact with another black person that has an issue with me, is there a way to defend myself and be constructive at the same time?
Questions and answers. Stay in the question lane and be real. Don't accuse anybody of anything. Just always ask for an inquiry. And this is for everybody. Ask for. From somebody who has, quote, unquote, authority. For an inquiry. That's the codified procedure, always. You don't ever do anything else. You don't make an accusation. You say, we have a situation here that needs to be, what is an inquiry? We have a situation that needs to be investigated. I call it the 3 I's. Investigation, well, inquiry first. That's looking into it. And then you assign an investigator to get all the details. That's the 2nd I. And then you make the indictment. You never make the indictment. You never accuse anybody of doing anything. You just say, we got a situation here that needs to be looked into. That's the inquiry. Inquiry. Sometimes I can't pronounce it very well, but that's why I spell it out like that. Inquiry. What does that mean? Looking into it. We got something going on that seems like it shouldn't be going on. See, that's what you're saying. That should be everybody's approach in every situation, not only with black people, but with white people, with everybody. Always start with that. That's an inquiry with a question mark behind it, all right? That's a question. Stay in that question lane. And heaven forbid, don't make accusations. Don't accuse anybody of doing anything. Just say, oh, well, this needs to be looked into, I think. All right? You're not making an accusation. Somebody says something that you think shouldn't be said or something like that, you say, now, well, I think that before we go any further, what you just said needs to be looked into. We need to involve some other people here because it looks like we may have a situation here that needs to be looked into. We just want to look into it, that's all. Okay, if you think you're being mistreated, you don't go in and make an accusation. You just say, I think we have a situation here, sir or ma'am, that needs to be looked into. And then that's the initial thing you do, and you ask for permission. Always do that. That's the question. Can we look into this by bringing in some other people to see what they think? Look into it. What are the laws? Are there any laws that govern this? Do any need to be made? So you're asking questions now. All within that first eye. Inquiry. You might spend 2 or 3 days just trying to figure out whether or not it needs to be looked into. Might be something to say, we don't really need to look into this. I mean, this is just hold everybody up and all like that. Mm-hmm. Well, if it don't need to be looked into, it's all over, okay? So that takes care of itself, okay? But now, once you say, well, yeah, we need this to be looked into, now you can go to the investigation stage, that second eye. You go from the inquiry to the second eye, investigation. That means, okay, who did what? And whatever was done should have been done. And if it should have been done or shouldn't have been done, according to what? Is there a law? Should there be a law? See, that comes out in the investigation. Was anybody harmed? If somebody was harmed, who was it? And what caused the harm? We may not even find out what caused the harm. We thought it was this and thought it was that and thought it was Mr. So-and-so. He caused it. But as it turns out, the investigation showed the harm was caused, but none of the people who were here were involved. Then you got another question. Were any people involved at all who caused the harm? Or did the harm come on its own by some act of nature? There was an earthquake yesterday that stopped the clock. That's why the clock stopped. It's a small one. So, well, it wasn't a person that caused the clock to stop. And when the clock stopped, the machine stopped running. And when the machine stopped running, George, that was operating the machine, he couldn't do his part of the work, and it got all messed up for half a day's work. Oh, now the investigation brought all that out. You didn't have that in the beginning. Oh, there was a small earthquake. We didn't even know about that. And the clock stopped. And when the clock stopped, the machine stopped. So it wasn't George, and it wasn't Frank. But George was accused of Frank. All right, now we're getting somewhere. See what I mean? I hope that people get it. Okay. And that's what you should think about doing all the time. Ask for an inquiry. And if the inquiry doesn't answer all the questions initially, then you ask for an in-depth investigation. That might take years, but you hope that it doesn't.
Yes, sir.
Or
absolutely.
You hope that it does. If you're fixing to get fired now, you say, well, this is still pending. We still have an investigation. We haven't completed that investigation. Well, that's 2 years that you were still working, okay? Because now they have suspended the investigation because the investigation seems like it wasn't leading anywhere. Now you got your job, and you got it permanently. And 40 years later, you retire. See what I mean? It never did come up again because the investigation just kind of went dead. They couldn't find out no answers to what? The inquiry. And when you move to an investigation, investigation means you have questions and answers. That's all an investigation is. Any kind of investigation, questions and answers. That's why it's important to stay in the question and answer mode. So we can't move forward until we get some answers to these questions. We can't go no further. So we've suspended the whole thing for now. I mean, so I retained my job. Yeah, you retain your job. You can go back to work. Because this is suspended until next year sometime. We got a lot of cases like this, you know. We'll call you then. Yeah. And so then the third thing is indictment. If somebody's going to be indictment. Now, what's an indictment? Somebody accuses you of a crime. See, that's that's the last thing you do. So you after that investigation, they'll say, oh, no. It turned out to be, it wasn't George. He thought it was George. We was fixing to fire him. It turned out to be Frank. All right? Yeah. I mean, the investigation showed that it was Frank and that he did it deliberately. You know? But it could have been, it wasn't George or Frank. The clock stopped, and that's why the machine stopped. But the clock started immediately after the small earthquake, and the clock stopped for some strange reason. So the machine stopped. But it messed up all the work for 4 hours work for everybody that had to be done all over again. I'm just throwing this out here, just giving you a made-up scenario for the sake of the audience. I'm not talking about something that really happened. I'm just giving this as a made-up illustration of what I'm talking about, of how to conduct the compensatory situation where there is a problem of any kind. Like the person asked me about a job situation, and so I gave an illustration about how to handle that job situation. Always stay in the question lane, so nobody can ever say that you falsely accused anybody. No, you didn't even make an accusation. You just asked for an investigation. That is what you did. And then lean back and know how you're going to answer questions when the investigation starts. Start getting it in your mind how you're going to answer every question. That's the codified procedure. So you don't be fumbling for answers at the last minute.
Okay. All righty. Thank you, Diva 2. Let's go quickly to New York. Tess, let's see here. How many minutes we got in this hour? Okay, Tess. See, what is your question quickly for Mr. Fuller? Good morning.
Good morning. First, I want to thank Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby, Robert, Sharon, Moonpie, and all those involved in making the show available to us. As well, a thank you to the listeners and those in the chat room. In horror movies, aliens are depicted as weird-looking creatures to scare audiences. What really scares me is us encountering human-like creatures not from this planet that are white. My fear comes from knowing that a white supremacist can convince those aliens that the non-white people of this planet must be treated unjustly. Mr. Fuller, why is fear an important tool for the white supremacists? Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tess. Mr. Fuller?
Well, it was a long question, so...
Why is fear...
Anyway, it can be capitalized. I mean... I didn't understand the question.
Why is fear an essential tool for the white supremacists to use against us?
Why is it what?
Fear, an important tool for... fear.
Fear is what makes people... what makes conflict between people all the time. And the person fears something from you. And so if the question is, why do white people fear black people? That's the question, if I understand it correctly. Is that correct?
Wait a minute. Tess?
Yes.
In a nutshell, why is it that white people, those that do, fear black people? And the answer, according to the code, you ask them, do you fear me?
So,
I mean, in any situation, see, that's the only way to find out. Because you take everybody as an individual. That's the codified procedure. That's how you do it. We don't code is about doing things different from the way we usually do it. Because the way we usually do things, we meaning black people collectively worldwide, ain't been working. So we need a code. The code says, if somebody says they fear you, you go into the question mood. Oh, you fear me. You fear me. Why do you fear me? And sit back and wait on an answer, and don't interfere with the person when they're given the with the person who's giving you the answer. Just have the next question ready if you have one. That's the procedure. The only way to find out what white people fear about black people is to ask white people. That's the best way. And when they answer, if you think you don't understand the answer, you ask for an elaboration. Can you give me, another way of saying it and whatnot, until you get the correct answer. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. That's the biggest thing about the code that I want black people to understand. All problems, not some, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So Neely Fuller is not white, but he might have some ideas about it. Now, I'll tell you what the codified position is.
Okay. Wait a minute, Mr. Fuller. I don't know if that was that your question, Tess?
Yes. Fear.
Wait a minute. Hey, Tess, was that what you were asking, Mr. Fuller?
No, I was actually asking, why is fear a tool for the white supremacists?
Okay, there you go.
Oh, fear is a tool for anybody that want to mistreat somebody. That's the answer. You instill fear in the person. It's called motivation by fear. In other words, I'll make you fear me in order to make you do what? Obey me. You're not going to obey somebody you don't fear one way or another. You don't want to. And it's real simple. I fear the white supremacists. Why? They can hurt me more than I can hurt them. A lot of black people got to learn that, particularly when they get pulled over. I mean, it's a shame. After all these lessons that we have had, when you're surrounded by people with guns, you say, I ain't scared of that. I ain't scared of no gun. I'm not either if I got control of the guns. I've been in control of a whole lot of guns. But when other people got control of guns, I have fear. And I'm going to show it.
Okay.
By complying with the people who can kill me.
Okay. Got to leave it there for the end of the first hour. Thank you, Tess. I hope that answered your question. Hopefully it did. Okay, we are coming to the end of the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. I hope that you were able to get something out of the first hour, but if you haven't, you can replay it again because the fine people here at ProduceJustice.com will have it put up. If you have to go, we hopefully that you'll come back for next week. But if you are going to be here, we have a second full hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller that will be on. Mr. Fuller, for the people who have to go, give them the last word here before we go into the second hour.
Yeah, I have fear of people with guns. I'd like the people in Baltimore to understand that Neely Fuller Jr. has great fear of people with guns. He's surrounded by people with guns, and I don't care what type of paratrooper or soldier I mean, there are people who, parachutists have excellent training. But when parachutists get out of his parachute and he's surrounded by people with guns, he puts up his hands if he's got any sense at all. He's now a prisoner of war, and he acts like one. And he'll tell you that's what you do. It's better than being dead. Every black person needs to know that. But we ain't learned that at all.
Okay, that concludes the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Stay tuned for the second hour coming up in 5 seconds.
ProduceJustice.com.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, to leave a small message, which Mr. Fuller calls a VGQ, or a quick question, please, ma'am, please, sir, just dial this number, 516-453-9921. Be sure to press the number 1 button, and when that happens, give the call screener your name so that I can properly give you an introduction. And if you are a first-time calling in, make sure that you give the call screener your name and indicate that you are a first-time caller, and we have a special package for you so that you will be heard. Secondly, if you don't want to use that method, you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y. And I can't say that it will be read today or today's program, but sometime in the future, on a future program, and I can't tell you when because I don't know, but it will be read. I will give you a notice with a little symbol that I've developed, and so that will let you know that I've received it and it will be read. You can also join the chat room. I would say cross your fingers, but I don't believe in hocus pocus. But anyway, you can join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. And when you do, you want to make sure that you click on programs. And when you do that, supposedly the the Produce Justice show is on there, and you can click that. And if you click that, there's a little blind or bar in there where the chat room is available. Now, according to some reports that I have gotten, that there has been some issues on getting in the chat room, although we have some people in here now because I'm looking at their chats. I don't know exactly what the issue is with that, but ProduceJustice.com has no control over that part of it. So if you have an issue with that, you may want to contact the people there to see what's going on so that you can get the program like we have been doing for quite a while. So I don't know what's going on. Some refer to it as the usual suspects are in play, and that could be true, but I have no verification of that. But that's what you want to do if you want to join the chat room. I would ask this, though. When you're in there and you are able to get on, please, ma'am, please, sir, do not ask me to ask Mr. Fuller a question from the chat room, because that's not what the chat room is for. That's what the 800, or rather the 800 number, that's what the telephone number is for in my a Gmail account, but you can ask a question for. Okay, all the books and materials, Spank me, we forgot to mention that in the first hour, but listen, all the books and materials can be obtained by going to ProduceJustice.com. That is ProduceJustice.com, where you can obtain your copy of the book. As a matter of fact, the things that Mr. Fuller has been talking about is from the book as suggestions. And he shows you how you may want to pick it up at some point and read it. You may not get it at first. You may not. It may not be for you at that point. But get the book, read it, and take a look at some of those suggestions and employ those suggestions, if you will, ma'am, if you will, sir, to whatever the situation that you are dealing with. And you can get that by going to ProduceJustice.com. That's ProduceJustice.com. Okay, let's see here. Let's go way out to L.A., where Swa is in the house. Swa, you ready? Here we go. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, sir.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Neely Jr.
Yes,
I'd like
sir.
to stay on the line.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Neely Jr., on page 313, you have this term, race camp. Can you share the constructive value of this word, race camp?
Well, what does it say?
It says, use this term to apply to any place, residence, country, nation, etc., where non-white people are located during the existence of white supremacy racism. Reason, during the existence of white supremacy racism, non-white people do not have or reside in homes, nor do they have or reside in countries or nations. A location is not necessarily a home, a country, or a nation. A location is a location. A location can also be a dislocation. During the existence of white supremacy racism, the white supremacist racists dictate which non-white people will be allowed to locate where, when, and how. These locations and or dislocations for or against non-white people cannot be correctly called homes, countries, or nations. They can only at best be correctly called race camps, tribal locations, tribal reservation. What is the constructive value of using this term and believing this term?
You can just use it anytime you feel like you want to use it, or in a situation. Race camp just means you're a victim of racism wherever you are, and wherever you are is a race camp. And you use it just that way. This person says, well, if you choose to use it, just like everything else in the code, so you only use any of these words, particularly in the word guide. You only use them, or everything, even in the basic book, or in both books, or both volumes, rather, because they're all the same book. The word guide is just an extension of the basic book. But you use them on occasions only when you think you will get what, according to the code, the most constructive result. You don't use it to be controversial. Nothing in the textbooks for victims of racism. And that will apply to anything else, any questions you have about anything in the books at all. You only use them like you use any tool. Words are nothing but tools. And you use tools for the occasion where you think that the tool will do the job you want done. Just like in a tool chest, a word is a word book, a word guide is nothing but a tool chest. Any book that you read, period, it's just a tool chest. It's a way of communicating, either to you or to someone else, or to both you and someone else. What? Something that needs doing or needs to be thought about. Thought, speech, action. That's what people or creatures are involved in. Any creature, what you call a creature, whether it's a person or what you call an animal, they do three things. They think, they speak in one form of language, in one form or another, and they act. So words are under that second category, speech. And you just have tools for speaking. Just like you have tools for doing things, you have tools for speaking. Tools for speaking are what? Words. A caterpillar has its own language. Why? They communicate with other caterpillars. People don't know what they're saying. You hear birds in the trees. They're communicating. You hear them tweet, 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 and we just hear it's what we call singing, some of us, and we call it noise, depending on what effect it has on you. But the bird is not thinking about you being involved in that. The bird is sending signals, language, words to other birds who understand what is being said. Come over here immediately. There's something in the nest. Needs to be investigated. Now, I don't know what all that means, but the bird knows when they hear it. So it's the same way with anything that you see in the code book. I think people kind of misunderstand that. It's not even so much what I mean to say. You can use the word any way you want to mean what you wanted to say, because a word is nothing but a tool. That's why I call it a word guide. So it's, and I'm saying all of this to make an even overriding, more important point. You don't have to check with Neely Fuller, really, about things like that, the technical use of the book. You pick up the book, but it's okay to ask that question. It's okay to ask any question that you have. A question needs to be answered, and there's an answer to every question. But you just say, well, Neely Fuller says that you can make a pledge this way. But I think that what I'll do, I'm not going to make that pledge. I'm going to make one of my own. But I got an idea from Neely Fuller, okay? But I'm going to make a pledge that's completely different that I think will work best for me. That's how I'm going to pledge the flag. I ain't going to do it in the words that he used. I got my own idea about what's the best pledge. So you do that. You don't have to get permission from me to use your own idea, but make it clear that your idea is not the same as mine if your idea is the same as mine. Make it clear that it is or isn't.
Okay.
You don't have to mention that at all, but of course if it's completely different, then you don't have to explain anything, or shouldn't rather, because you don't have to do anything except what you want to do.
Exactly.
But if you want to use exactly as what Neely says, you should, in order to avoid confusion, say that you got it from Neely Fuller's book.
Mm-hmm.
You should do that.
Yes.
Now, that's not just to pump up Neely Fuller. It's not for that purpose at all. It's to not cause confusion about what Neely Fuller is saying and what somebody else might be saying. And it's also saying if there's any problem with it, check with Neely Fuller, because he's to blame, all right? Because people, when you're in trouble, you always look for somebody to blame other than you. Okay, I'm that way, everybody's that way. That's your first instinct, survival, okay? So if I'm quoting somebody else, word for word, Mark Twain, which I quote every now and then, Eleanor Roosevelt, lots of people, I quote. Dick Gregory. I'll say this came from Dick Gregory. That's what everybody should do. That's a part of the code. Wherever it came from, just say that's where it came from. Whether you agree with it or not. And then you say what you have to say. Now, this is what Dick Gregory said, but that's what he said about this particular situation. But I got my own ideas about this situation. Now, I'm going to tell you what they are. And if they're completely different from what Dick Gregory says, and if somebody asks you, according to the code, well, are you agreeing with Dick Gregory or disagreeing? Now, it's a way to answer that according to the code so that you don't have conflict with anybody who disagrees with what you're saying. You say, no, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just telling you what my opinion is. I just told you what Dick Gregory said because you might want to know what Dick Gregory said. But now I'm speaking for me. And I'm not saying what he's saying, but I'm not saying anything for it or against it. It stands on its own. You better believe whatever Dick Gregory says. Dick Gregory says, in my opinion, Neely Fuller's opinion, stands on its own. It don't need no added nothing.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Swa, from L.A. Let's go up to Buffalo and Ryan. Let's get you in here, Ryan. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, everybody. Really quick VGQ that will lead into my question. with the increase in self-awareness, it will be a bit more difficult to avoid conflict without codification. So my question to Mr. Fuller this morning is, Mr. Fuller, can you give an illustration, a codified illustration of how white people, not white supremacists, react to the system of white supremacy? And I'll take my call offline.
Well, I want to go by what I see, mostly on television. That's when I see white people talking about white supremacy. And so what I go by is their reaction, what I'm looking at. In answer to the question, that's what I do. Or if I'm at a meeting, I just wait for the white person to speak. And some white people stand up and say, well, I don't agree with that because that's supportive of white supremacy. Now, I'm listening to a white person say that about white supremacy. I'm hearing more and more of it. So if anybody asks me, what does that mean? I say, well, you can ask him. He's the one doing the talking. You know. So you just pay attention to what white people say when they say it. And see if you think it is true or false. That's number one. Or that it should or should not be, or whatever it is you think about it. If you're going to respond to it at all. It's real simple. Everything in codification is basically real simple. Kindergarten simple. There's nothing to scratch your head about. You just take it like it is. We have that expression. That's one of our slogans. Just tell it like it is, and you take it for what it is, if you recognize what it is. So if a white person says, well, I don't believe in white supremacy. Well, if somebody asks me, did you hear what he said? I said, yeah, I heard him. If I heard him, well, what do you think about what he said? I think that he said what he said. That's the codified answer. Yeah, but what do you think about what he said? I think that he said what he said. He didn't believe in white supremacy. And I answered the question about what he said when it's directed to me. And that's what I'm doing right now. What I think about what white people say when they say that, I know what the code requires me to do. I choose not to say anything when somebody says something like that, and it's a white person. I don't believe in white supremacy. What the code requires me to do now is not to believe that person. That's a requirement.
That's a requirement.
That's what the code requires me to do. Neely Fuller. That's what the code requires. Why? Because I haven't seen no evidence that what he's saying is true. That will satisfy me. I'm not talking about somebody else. I'm talking about me. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know the person. I'm at a meeting that was open to the public. And a white person stands up, well, I don't believe in white supremacy. I want to make that clear right now to everybody. And a person asks me, well, what you got to say about that, Fuller? I say, I have to say what the code says for me to say. And what's that? I heard what he said. He said what he said. That all you got to say? Yeah. That's all I got to say. Now, the person asks me, well, do you believe he's telling the truth? I'll say, no. That's a requirement. I don't believe he's telling the truth. Well, why don't you believe he's telling the truth? Because I have no reason to. I haven't seen no proof.
Okay.
That's the way I answer. See, codification is simple. Just keep your mind on what you're doing and what you're saying and why. All right. Why, Fuller? Because I don't have any evidence that what he said was true. Lots of white supremacists say they don't believe in white supremacy when it's convenient for them to do so, to say that. See, that's my response. If the person wants an explanation for what I said, See, I can give an explanation for what I said, but what this white person said what he said. I'll take that into consideration that he said it, because that's the only thing I can take into consideration, other than white supremacy exists, and he might be a white supremacist, saying that he's not. I'm duty bound to suspect he could be. Why? I got to suspect somebody. Might as well be him.
Okay. All righty. Okay, let's go to Justin in Illinois. Justin, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Oh, I don't have a question. I just have a quick BGQ. I would just like to commend Mr. Fuller on dealing with the irate caller last week. It was a classic practice of code. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, we've had quite a few people that didn't particularly care for that. I'm trying to find, since you brought that up, I'm trying to find one of the Gmails that I got that addressed that situation. Here's one. It says from D. It said, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby, last week there was a caller who obviously was upset with the two of you for their perception of all you didn't answer their question on the previous week to their satisfaction. And Mr. Fuller, you always mention how we as black people are full of toxicity. How whenever we get together for any prolonged period of time, it comes out. I can attest to that. I've been part of numerous community meetings, political organizations, etc., and there will almost always be someone who feels slighted and wants to fight or cuss out other members of the group, which usually leads to nothing getting done in the end. We go to war with each other but play coy with our true enemy, the white supremacists. There's a Facebook meme that's been around for about a decade that shows the image of a cowardly lion from The Wizard of Oz and an actual roaring lion. In the image with the cowardly lion, the caption reads, quote, how black people are when dealing with white supremacists, end of quote, meaning we humble ourselves. And in the other one, the roaring lion is about to attack. It reads, quote, how black people get gangster with each other, end of quote. I think you get the point. My final point, Mr. Fuller, is this. This is why whenever a white person would say they wouldn't last long in a black neighborhood, they're wrong, because typically black people see whites as authority figures. They may not grunt a bit and roll with their eyes, but that's exactly the furthest extent of it. However, any black person who enters the fray, who looks out of place, they will be ready to pounce on them in an instant. Whose is you? What set from ninja are you? Any thoughts on this, Mr. Fuller? And this is the only solution at this point. Still stay away from each other, even if we're engaging in constructive activity. Someone who looks like us comes along and seeks to tear it down. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Fuller? Darrell says.
Well, if there is a centralized thought, yes, that's to be expected. People who feel like they have no power, people who feel like they're in a weak position, will viciously turn on anyone else who is in a weak position. I mean, in a heartbeat. It's a reaction. It's universal. Weak people turn on other weak people because it reminds them of their own weakness. So they're not going to turn on somebody strong because somebody strong can do harm to them, more harm than they're already suffering from. But I don't want no more of that. So a slave that gets a good beating from the slave master will, going back to the slave shack, kick the dog. There have been a whole lot of illustrations of that where people actually did that. Person mad at the boss on the job. First thing to do is to get somewhere else, a familiar environment where he's familiar with everybody around and all like that, winds up slapping the wife. Because she came there all cheerful and all like that, and he feels like he's been kicked around all day. He comes in mad, and he takes it out on her. Everybody's familiar with that. So that's to be expected. So that has to be codified. That's why I said when the lady called in and used the term MF and all like that, I expect that. In fact, I welcome it to put everything to a test, because codification say, hey, you codify everything. You don't leave nothing out. It's nothing that happens is supposed to rattle you under codification. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You don't get rattled when you're codified about anything, ever. That's why I say we all need a code, including me. You know, I react to some situations that I could have done it better. And the best way to do it, particularly when it comes to name calling, that's a piece of cake for me, because I got that down pat, is to say, okay, you have another point of view. So you're calling me a name, to get my attention about your point of view. So give me your point of view. After you call me all the names you want to. First of all, Neely Fuller. This is a person who wants to challenge Neely Fuller, which anybody can, if that's what you want to do, if you think that's making progress. So, first of all, I'm just giving a kind of a wild illustration right now how that works according to the code. Somebody wants to call Neely Fuller a name, MF, the N word, anything like that. Black or white, doesn't matter. It's name calling. How do you react to name calling? That's the question. And the code says like a rock, okay, in so many words. Like a rock. How does a rock react to name calling? That's what you do, according to the code, okay? So I listen. You say, well, first of all, Neely Fuller, you rotten MF, and that includes your mama, too. Whoa. Okay, they're pouring it on. All right. So I'm listening. And I'm telling you, anybody who wants to test me on that can at any time. I'm well trained on that. Okay? So they say, now I got about 15 names I want to call you before I tell you what I really want you to do with your stupid blankety self. Now he called me about 15 different names and said a whole lot of things that every, what you call insult that you can think of. And it might take him 15 minutes just with that kind of introduction. Somebody I've never seen before, never talked to before. I've been listening to you a long time. You ignorant MF, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Neely Fuller, codified. Because he said he's codified on that. And that's what I'm saying to the entire world. I am. You can't catch me off guard on that at no time. And when I say you, I mean anybody on the planet, white or non-white. At any time, wake me up at midnight and give me a full dose of what you've been practicing on for the last 6 months. And see if Neely Fuller is going to get rattled about the name calling. Now, I get rattled if you're holding a gun. I mean, that's a different story. But if you're just calling names, try me. Now, that takes what? Prior codification. That's what the code does. Prepares you to go to court and sit there with ease. You ain't nervous at all. Because you know what you're going to say in answer to every question and how you're going to say it. That's what code, that's why I say black people need a code. You know what's going to happen before it happens. So when it comes to name calling, I practice that. You know, I'm practicing now, right here on the air. See how many names you can call me before you tell me what you really want to tell me. Other than that, after you're supposed to make me feel bad, which I ain't going to feel bad at all. I feel great when you do that because you put me to a test. That's excellent. I need to be put to a test. Because, see, when I'm facing the white supremacists under some real circumstances, testing time is over. I should have had the test before then. This ain't no test run. This is a real thing. I'm dealing with life and death. I've just been pulled over. Everybody got their guns drawn. And that guy got his cop. And he looked like he's just wanting me to try to get my driver's license. Gun! That's the first, because he did that 40 times before. 40 people did. So when he tells me, get my driver's license, I say, sir, my driver's license is under my coat. It's on the inside of my coat. And I'd rather, really rather not, but I'll do it if you say so. I would rather not put my hand under my coat to get anything because you and your fellow officers may think that I'm going to get a gun if you allow me to say so. Shut your blanket blank mouth and do what I tell you to do. Yes, sir. That's me. Why? I've trained myself that way. See, I'm not waiting for the last minute for that kind of training. Sir, what do you want me to do? I want you to shut your blankety blank mouth and the N word right behind it. Yes, sir. See, I mean, be codified. This is how you control situations. You're taking control. You're not giving up nothing. You are taking control. Why? Because you are remaining what you want to remain, alive. There's a code for doing that.
Okay.
Now, you might wind up dead anyway.
Just
some guy standing behind him, his buddy. He said he thought he had, I mentioned my coat, and he thought he saw my right hand move. So he fired 6 times. Well, I'm just dead, that's all. Because they were intending to kill me anyway. But going back to that paratrooper that just got captured, they can kill him anyway. You behind our lines, and you carrying a gun, and you are the enemy, and you just dropped out of a plane in a parachute after bumming my wife and kids, you think you're going to walk away from here? You did, mister. But I still had my hands up. Why? That was my best option, that's why.
Okay. Got to leave it there for right at the moment, and then we'll come right back to Mr. Fuller. You are listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. If you'd like to get in on the last half hour or so of the show, do that. Please do that. Call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button if you have a question and a brief comment so that Mr. Fuller can hear it and give the answer to it. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. I will give you a symbol to indicate that I have received it, and it will be read at an appropriate time when we don't have as many callers. And I don't know when that's because y'all been blowing this bad boy up, and that's a good thing. But they will be read at some point in time, and I will give you a notice when it will be read, and so that you can be heard all around the world. How about that? And lastly, you can go into the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. That's blogtalkradio.com. You want to click on where it says programs. When you do that, then the icon or screen will come up where it says shows, and you hit that, and the Produce Justice Show is one of the offerings on there, and you click that, and then to the right, unless they changed it, is the place where you can enter into the chat room, as the chat room is in here right now, and I'm looking at some of those chats in there, and that's the way you can do it. I would ask that when you are in there, do not use the chat room to ask me to ask Mr. Fuller a question, because it ain't happening, Captain. Can't do it no more. That's what the Gmail is for, and the number that you call could get on it. By the way, if you are a new caller, make sure you tell the call screener that, so that they will alert me, and I will give you the new caller salute. Yeah, and you can be heard. Yeah, okay. So all that and more. Listen to this also. Many of you already know this, but I have to listen again, because this is how Mr. Fuller gets paid. You got to buy the book, okay? Come on, buy the book. Get the book. I know that Triple Eight Rita, she does it and hands out the book to a lot of people, and they get the book. I understand in some you can get the book. Some of the issues foreign have been resolved. Mr. Fuller, can you get that book in the UK, the so-called United Kingdom?
That's what I've been told.
Okay.
I've been told that some of the shipping companies are doing that.
Oh, that's very good.
Some bookstores, rather.
Yeah.
It's about three that's doing that, I think.
Okay.
Right.
Very good.
And they have access to the market overseas. You know, a lot of bookstores, small bookstores, and people who, black people particularly, who I'm trying to be supportive of, and other people, none of the main bookstores handle my book anyway, on account of, I guess, it's poisonous, or something. Or the book is not. I will tell people this. I call it one of the best of the worst written books about counter-racism, what to do about racism, ever produced. One of the worst written of the best of counter-racist volumes. That's how accurately, I think, describe my book. It's worse written because, and I think a lot of the readers will see that, including some errors that are in there. It's one in the table of contents where something is listed. It's just about a paragraph or two that would have been in there, but it's not in the book, but it's in the table of contents. I want to tell people that who might be frustrated about that. I want to tell the whole world that. It was a rush job getting the book out. I haven't been able to correct it, but my years are waning. I had to move fast when I could, because I got a lot of things working against me, a lot of factors, and have been all along, not just occasionally. There's a lot of things working against me, including people who, are distorting things that I'm saying in the books and all like that. A lot of that going on. So it's a lot of editing that needs to be done. That book has a stiff price on it. That's another thing that I would like to get down. I'd like to be in the Northwestern Hemisphere to be in the $10 market, no more than that. But what I'd like to be and what the reality is, two different things. But that's all the system of white supremacy, too, where I'm concerned.
Yes, sir.
Certainly where the book is concerned. But go and get it anyway as best you can, I think. If you have the money and you think it's worth it, it's supposed to be worth it to you. Don't talk about it in somebody else. You look at that price on it and see if it's worth it to you to have this book and to use it to try to get your money's worth, because it's supposed to do that and a whole lot more.
Yes, sir.
And so get it by going to producejustice.com.
That's it, producejustice.com. Okay, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Okay, now before I go back to, we got at least two or three more. People would like for you to finish up. I'm gonna get to you, Lee, and Chris. People would like for you to finish up on that name call in particular when somebody used the term MF and how you are now ready for that, no matter whatever name somebody chooses to call you. Go ahead and finish that up, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, whatever name. See, the name calling. And I got a list of things in the textbook that's saying, about things you don't do. That's another thing. Somebody calls you a name. Do you call them a name? The answer is, according to the code, what? No. You always call people by the name or title that they want to be called. That's white or non-white. Always. Even though they are pouring tons of names and titles on you that, are pretty ugly, you might say, in everybody's opinion. Pretty ugly. As ugly as it can get. But when they finish, you still call them by the names or titles, or that even if you don't know them, you give the best that you can. Mr., Mrs., Sir, Ma'am. That's how you address them, according to the code.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
I can say, I'm not bragging on it, I'm just saying, when you're prepared, you're prepared.
Yes, sir.
I'm prepared for any names, and when the person is finished, according to the code, then what do you do next, Fuller? Walk me through the whole thing. The person is finished calling you all these names. Then you ask a question. Is there question that you have, sir or ma'am? Or is there anything you want me to do or not do in regards to what we are here for? And in answer to a previous caller's questions, that's what you do at these meetings. After they get through name calling and all like that, you say, all right, question time. And the person who is doing all the name calling and all like that, very politely, be very polite, keep your voice down. Don't be tempted to get loud, because they're loud. They blew the roof off the place for about 15 minutes, okay, or whatever. So you're very calm, they say. Now, is there question that you have, or is there anything that you want me to do? If you are the person that they call all these names, because they disagree with what you're saying. Is there anything that you want me to say? And why do you want me to say these things that you want me to say? And then you've asked your question. Don't cut into the answers. Wait on the person to respond. That's the codified procedure.
Yes, sir.
You want to know what's on their minds, since they apparently they got a lot on their mind if they're acting in this manner. That's what you do. What you might call a toxic situation among black people, which
that's
is
what
always going to be there.
Yeah, that's what he mentioned, that the situation was toxic.
Yes,
so
you ask them what's on their minds. What do you think ought to be done? Ask that person, not somebody else.
Right.
And do it always politely. Okay, you disagree with what everybody else is doing and saying, and so that's well and good. We take that in the spirit in which it's given. Now, we'd like to know, maybe all of us or some of us, certainly me, I'd like to know what you think ought to be done about the situation that we're talking about.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Why we're here. See, stay focused on what you're there for.
Mm-hmm. So
all
even
the
if
rest of the drama doesn't count.
Right. So even if that person that you asked that particular question to said to you or in front of the whole meeting that you see as toxic, and they would say, well, I want you to kiss my black assets, what do you say to that?
Then you say, well, now, we're all here for constructive purposes. Would that in any way contribute to what we're all here for?
Gotcha.
Is that constructive? See, constructive results. Always think of that. This whole meeting is about constructive results. Otherwise, what? According to the code, you ain't got no business having no meeting.
You ain't got no business having a meeting. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're not
Okay.
going to have the meeting, get constructive results. And constructive results means problem solving. Any meeting that you have that doesn't solve a problem was a meeting that shouldn't have been had.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's go to the Bronx. And Lee, get ready, Lee. I'm getting ready to cue you in. Okay, Lee, you're in. Go ahead. What's your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I have two very quick questions. The first one is, are you a liar?
Yes. I told lies. In the system of white supremacy, and this is the codified answer, lying is a requirement for everybody. The white supremacy system insists on people saying things that are not true. That's what all this opposition to CRT is about. They want black people to say, practically, for what I'm hearing, and I'm just going by what I hear, practically saying young children get upset when you talk about slavery. So therefore, talk about something else, but don't talk about slavery. And to say, well, some people have asked a question, a logical question. Well, are we to tell young white people that slavery didn't exist because it upsets them? No, that's lying. That's lying. And they're going to require black people to teach and say slavery. What's that? I don't know about no slavery.
Okay, Lee, there's a lot of background noise. Could you ask your second question?
I'm sorry, I went to... He kind of answered it.
Neely Fuller does lie because that's a requirement.
My second question was going to be, is there a reason to lie under any circumstance, which you kind of already answered. So good morning, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good morning, Lee, and thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Lee. Chris, it says Chris. I don't know. Kansas City. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Dr. Fuller, here's the question, is constructive behavior available to all black people? And if it is, why do most of us choose to be non-constructive in our daily activities over constructive?
Excellent, straightforward question. Because we are well trained to be absolutely destructive. We're saying that in so many words, every day, almost every minute, the way we talk, the way we act, it's not to construct anything. It's to be destructive. We are fed through video games and everything else. That's one of the first things you learn. On Christmas Day, I wanted a gun when I was real young. Christmas. You're supposed to be talking about Jesus and everybody loving everybody and all this. That's what Christmas is about. I'm looking under the Christmas tree for what? Where's that gun somebody promised me? That toy gun. That Hopalong Cassidy gun. That Red Ryder rifle. I don't see no guns up under here. This ain't Christmas. No guns. I want to be out there at 10 o'clock in the morning shooting down my neighbors with their new guns that they got for toys. In answer to the question, we are fed a steady diet of being destructive. When a black person rolls their eyes at you at the subway station, they're not looking for a way to help you do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, you want to get it on? We can get it on right here now in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And, hey, I bust the cap, and I got a brand new gun, all right? Got some nice shiny bullets that I've been looking at all night. I'm going to put one of them right in you. You say one word to me, and maybe 4 or 5 other MFs stand around here looking. Put one in them, too. Why? Because I'm bad, that's why. Well, let somebody know I'm bad.
Yeah.
And people walking around looking like, always acting like they my boss. Ain't nobody my boss.
Yeah, but you
Nobody
bad.
tell me what to do. It don't look like you gonna tell me what to do. I ain't gonna pay no fare neither.
But you bad.
You saw me jump. Yeah. You saw me jump that fare. Now you gonna mess with me? I'll kill you.
That person
we've
said
been
they
trained
bad.
that way. That's the only training we have had that has stuck.
Yeah.
All the other training is out the window.
That's kind of funny.
So I expect black people to approach me that way.
Uh-huh.
Get out of the way, you old MF. And I get hopping, too, as best I can.
Yeah, you get on out the way.
Because I know that he'll kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an easy target. Now, he's running into something that ain't easy. Sometimes he forgets, and then he winds up dead.
Well, how come he ain't bad when the white man comes around?
They don't play. See, they don't play. They say, you going to get in my face got my game? That's when you get the truth. See, the white supremacists said, we love this. We're good old boys.
Oh, yeah.
We're good. We practice all the time for occasions like this. I mean, we get up in them Kentucky hills, and we practice all the time. We got targets that look like you.
Okay.
And you don't know what you're dealing with.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for your question. This comes from Ashley. She says this. Ashley says this. Good morning. My question for Mr. Fuller. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. There you go. Okay. My question, Mr. Fuller, is there anything new or things that you have learned since writing your book that you feel is important to share with the listeners? Thank you for sharing your insight. This is Ashley from Florida.
So many things that I can't even think of one. Why? Because I learn something every day. Why? Because I'm trying to. And that's something I'd like to tell the audience, too. It's 4 words. I'm always handing out, short words and whatnot, like constructive result. Always think of everything, all day. Constructive result, constructive result. If you go into a meeting, think about it. Is this going to produce a constructive result, or is there any way that I can help produce a constructive result? Because the last 5 meetings, we didn't do very much of anything that was constructive, that produced a constructive result. In fact, you might not be able to think of anything. But this day, and that's the other 2 words I want to say, this day, constructive result. This day, that's the equation. That's a codified equation that every black person on the planet should think about. This day equals constructive result. Think about that every day, all day. I have it written down right before me right now. I'm looking at it. This day. That's the first 2 words. Then an equal sign, constructive result. That's all day. That's in anything that you say or do. This day, because that's the only day you have. Tomorrow ain't promised. And if it is promised, it may not get here for you.
Yeah, that's
so
the last
one thing you can be sure of. This day is somebody's last day.
Yeah,
think about that all day. This day that you're experiencing right now, is somebody's last day. But they got no idea. They got 15 more minutes on this planet. There are a lot of people right now got 15 more minutes. It might be you. You might walk out of the building that you're in, and a brick falls off the top of the building. Perfect timing. Hits you in the head. It fell 12 stories. That brick. Silently. It's been sitting there on the edge for like forever. But for some strange reason, it silently fell 12 stories just as you walked out of the building from where you are now and hit you square on the top of your head, a huge brick, a cinder block. I mean, with such force, it splattered your brains all over the place. That's going to happen 15 minutes from now when you walk out the building. You got a rendezvous with death. So always think that way. This day may be your last day. And what are you going to do? Your last day is going to be spent doing what? Producing something that produces constructive results.
Okay.
That applies to homeboy with that gun in his belt, too.
Yeah,
this
that bad
day,
man.
Constructive results. Now,
Okay.
you going to carjack somebody? Is that a constructive result? Is that the way you're going to spend your time this day? You keep doing that and see what the odds are for your rosy future. Keep doing that. That's all you got to do is get up every morning and do it. The more you do it, how do the odds go? According to logic, you're not going to be doing that when you're 50 years old and you're 17 now. Every day, carjacking. Somewhere along the line, a mistake is going to be made because you already made one the first time.
Yeah.
The fact that you're getting away with the person the second time, meaning you're on real borrowed time now.
Let's get this last call in. Let's see if I can get him in here. Are you still there, Brother Muko?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, well,
I just wanted to tell Mr. Fuller the few suggestions, just one or two of the suggestions that worked for me in his code book, if he had a minute. And it seemed like you got three, so I'll be quick. The one that really works for me is the three things that I absolutely don't ask for, which is an apology, respect, and love. So, yeah, that
Not
absolutely
ever, under any
works for me.
circumstance, according to the code.
Right. Absolutely, and it works for me. It works for me every time I use it. I give it to my children, and also the three race classifications. A lot of people do not agree, and I get a lot of flack from it, but for me, it eliminates confusion in every aspect, even when I'm having conversations one-on-one with people that are non-white and that are white and suspected white supremacists. And the last thing is whenever I'm around a suspected white supremacist or even a admitted white supremacist, I implemented in my code to ask them for a list of white people that practice racism, white supremacy. And I usually get crickets, but one or two suspected white supremacists actually gave me a list, Mr. Fuller.
Okay, so you got a list, and you accept it according to the code. You accept that list. Now, do you know these white people? Are you familiar with these white people on that list?
The white people on the list, I have looked them up, and I have found out a lot of information about them. And the suspected white supremacist that gave me the list was actually running for office in Chicago. His name was Gabe Pedamont, I believe. But he definitely provided me.
Ask for permission to use his name as the source. Because he's going to say, I didn't say that. See, unless you know the people, because this is one white person, that's another thing. See, in other words, you're not making an accusation. That's a serious accusation. That's an accusation if you use it.
Right.
And say that these are white supremacists.
Hang on, Mr. Fuller. Hang on, Mr. Fuller. Hey, Robert, give me about 3 more minutes. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's it. See, get permission. If you use those names, that comes under the heading of accusations, and code says you stay away from accusations. You just say, these names were given to you. by another white person, but you get that white person's permission to say that he said that. Because that's who you're going to refer to. You're going to say, I don't know these people. I don't know nothing about them.